Okay guys, this is the first video for my manual transmission swap on a 2005 Volkswagen Passat TDI. The car's right here. Anyways, this is getting manual transmission. I've already removed the automatic, but these are parts out of a 1.8T parts Passat. Here's the basically the pedal bracket. It holds all three pedals. The accelerator pedal bolts here, brake pedals here, and this is the clutch pedal. I've already removed it. This is off the 1.8T parts Passat. I'm going to leave this bracket in our car. It doesn't actually have to be swapped. This rod is not long enough in the automatic. So you remove or loosen the set screw right here. It's just a 4mm. Pull these snaps off the end and pull that pin out for the brake pedal, and then you can put this pin in for the manual. Then you can slide the clutch pedal over that, and then this little switch also has to be bolted on it. There's a 10mm here and a 10mm here, so I'm gonna do that. Well, I finished putting in that little switch on there, and I got that new rod in. I don't have it attached yet because I want to slide it into the clutch pedal when I get it up. I don't know if you can see that little machined area with the two bowl holes, but that little rubber plug behind it is where the master cylinder goes. And then the one up and left of it is where the clutch master cylinder feed line goes. So you need to pop both of those plugs out, and then you can bolt the master cylinder into the hole. Here is the clutch master cylinder. I just took the brake line off there. So just make sure that clip is in there, and here's the feed line that goes to it. This will just bolt right into that bracket. It'll go right into the hole. Right about like that. I actually found it easier to get those plugs out from the under the hood, so you can see them right down in there. There's one, there's the other, and then right up here is going to be where the clutch feed line will go on. You'll snap that off and hook the line up, but I won't do that until I got the line hooked up to the slave cylinder and the transmission. I got the clutch master cylinder in there. You can see it bolted up. There's the feed line running over to that hole on the side. It's pretty hard to get down that thing to snap down in that recess. I'll show you. There's this recess right here that plastic thing's got to snap down into, so it's pretty hard. That's why I didn't put this rubber plug in yet, so I'd have more room. And the line that goes into that from the outside, pull that back about 1/2 inch, and you can get that snap down on there. Okay, and now that that's on there, I'll just push this rubber plug over the line and snap it in the hole, and then that feed line will be in. Oh, I forgot to mention something pretty important. This is the brake pedal from the gasoline manual Passat, and you can see our brake pedal is probably 2.5 times bigger. So you have to swap the brake pedals or cut your own. I'm just going to swap it. So I put that pin in a little bit too soon. You got to pull that pin back out that is up there for the clutch pedal. Pull that out, and then you have to break. This is a 16mm, and then there's a 19mm nut right here. So you break it loose, and then you can unthread this from the brake booster or master cylinder. So once you do that, then this brake pedal will just slide down, and you can put the one from the manual Passat in. Okay, now I'm ready to put the clutch pedal in. So here it is, and what you want to do, hang on, gotta get the better light. Pull this tab up and then pull that pin out, and that's what the master cylinder goes on. This is ready to go in, except for there's a spring that will go on that thing right there. This is the spring, and it goes on something like this. I'm not 100% sure. on how this goes in. So I'm going to put the clutch pedal in first, then I'll put the spring in. Well, you can see I got the third pedal in. That looks pretty good. This little, some people try to put the clutch pedal in without pulling that pin up at the top backwards, but just pull that back, slide the clutch pedal up in, and then push it back through. It's much easier. Then this little clip goes on the end. I'm going to show you just, here's the master cylinder here. So I'm trying to do this one-handed, but there it goes. Sorry. So it goes in like that and then just snaps down like that. I figured out how this spring goes in. I've got it on this other piece just so because it's easier to show. But these things will actually only go on one way where they're offset. You can kind of see that. This is the top on this side. So it goes on just about like this, and the clutch pedal's right here. So that's how it goes. Okay, you can see those little white tabs up in here. That's where the spring is. I ended up pulling this pin back out just to give room to get the spring on. That worked pretty well. That wasn't bad at all. This little place right up here, that's where the clutch pedal switch goes in, which is right here. Just goes in and snaps right. And one more thing, this little bolt right here that holds that shaft in for the brake pedal and clutch pedal, you need to tighten that back up because you don't want the shaft spinning in the aluminum. So once you're done with that, we are completely done here except for electrical. Now I'm under the car here. Here's the where the flex plate goes on. I just unbolted the 6 bolts around here, and there's 2 shims that you can take off from both sides. And I took the dust shield off too, because the one from the manual car will go in. Right now, this clutch line is what I'm working on putting in. It goes in this hole right up there behind the power steering rack. So I'm trying to fish it up in there, and we'll see how it goes. Well, there's the line in. Got it up through that hole there. This little clamp goes on this nut right here. I believe it's like a 9mm. That line was actually easier than I thought to get up there. I heard it was hard. I left the brake booster in. It probably only took me 5 minutes or so to get that line in. So that wasn't bad at all. It just snaps right in the master cylinder, and I just lubed it with a little bit of DOT4 brake fluid, and it slid in just with my fingers. So I'm gonna put that on, and then I gotta put this little rubber plug in. I slit this corner of it so I can just pop it over the line, and then I'll move on to this exhaust. I gotta remove this exhaust shield below the shifter, and I'm going to remove this brace here also. So I'll do that now. Here's the 2 clutch line nuts. I said it was a 9mm, and it's actually a 10, that big one that was on the automatic car. That little one is actually that same nut off a manual, and that is a 9mm. So the big one won't fit on that little clamp, so you got to use the one from the manual. You may be able to use the one from the auto, you just have to trim that ring. Now I'm up in the car here, so we got to get this thing out, and we got to get a real stick shift in here. So right down here there's 2 little caps, one on this side, one on the other side, and they are 8mm bolts. So I'm going to remove that, and then I got to work on getting this out here. Well, this panel really just pops up from this panel here. It's under this ring, or this little rib right here. Just pops up from that, and then it just slides forward, so you can just slide it up and out. And then there is one electrical connection right here for the cigarette lighter. So there's just 2 tabs on it, and it should pull out. So there's that, and the panel's free. Well, if you're at all curious, I'm not exactly sure you have to do this, but how you get this little handle off is you take this and just pop it out so it's in the out position, and then this little chrome ring, you pop it down like this, and once that's popped down you can grab this handle and it'll come right off. So then you can pop this back in. But that's how you get that off. And then I undid the 4 clips on this thing right here. Actually, one of them kind of snapped back on, but then this can come off and I can get to the electrical connections in the back. So this little cable right here, you can see the ring on it. It's just slidden on a little post in there. It's slid in right here, and you just pull this little metal tab up and that'll release it, and then it can slide to the side and get out of your way. So everything is pretty much clear on this thing now. There's no electrical or mechanical connections, so I'm just going to remove these 10mm nuts. There's 4 of them, and then it will fall out the bottom. Okay, it is now free from those nuts being removed, but these little white plastic tabs actually hold it up, so you just gotta push those in, one on each side, and then it comes down. Alright, back under the car here, you can see the shifter's loose, just setting on the exhaust. So see if I can figure out how to get this thing just loose out of here. Alright, there it goes. Quite easy. So there's the automatic next to the manual one, and I'm gonna get that manual one back up in there. Here's the manual shifter. Just make sure that shift lever's all the way back and bring it up to the exhaust here over top, and it will slide up in the hole. So just like that, and I'm actually gonna have to work from the top now. So it's sitting there, but I just gotta bolt it in. Well, to put the shifter in, you just pull it up in position and then tighten the nuts down. There's 4 of them, so just snug them down, and I'm actually just gonna leave it like this with this loose until the transmission is in. There's an adjustment right here. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have to get to that or not, so I'm gonna leave it open until I got the transmission in. Alright, now I got that little brace back in. Those are actually 16mm bolts, not 15. And I put that heat shield back up. I did clean it just a little bit. Turning around, here's the crankshaft. I'm going to replace the rear main seal. It looks like it's leaking a little bit, and it's pretty cheap. So just remove those 2 oil pan bolts, and those bolts are on the outside, and it'll come. Okay, I'm putting the rear main seal on. I got a little RTV sealant on it. There's this little plastic ring in it that slides right over the crankshaft like this. And then when you got it perfect, you just push it on evenly, and that plastic sleeve will guide it on the crankshaft. Okay, so that's on the crank there, it's on the dowel pins. And then you just grab a couple bolts and finish snugging it down. I finished putting the rear main seal in, and you can see I just put this dust shield on right here. Make sure it's on the dowel pins, and especially make sure it goes underneath this tab on the rear main seal to hold it in. Another dowel pin there, and make sure right around here by the starter, they really like to go and touch the flywheel and make noise, so make sure it's all the way up against the block there and not bent away. So now that we're done with that, I'm gonna start putting the clutch on. Okay, probably one of the hardest parts about doing this swap is figuring out what clutch to buy. Especially if you're tuning it to go to a manual, you're likely to put a stage 1.5 or stage 2 tune on it, and you need to hold a lot more power than a 1.8T stock clutch. So I did a lot of research, and I was trying not to spend a whole lot of money, but this system right here ended up costing right around $900, but it should hold a stage 2 or even a little bit more. So I ended up figuring out that I wanted either a very heavy flywheel or a dual mass flywheel to get rid of chatter and just make it easier to drive. So I gave South Bend a call, and this is a 1.8T dual mass flywheel made by Luke, and they recommended this flywheel. Well, they didn't recommend the Luke one, but just the OEM 1.8T dual mass flywheel, 228 millimeter diameter. So this wasn't too bad. I think it was $180 or something like that. So that's a flywheel, and they said it will hold the torque. So this is a South Bend clutch. This is a South Bend Stage 3 daily. So their lightest duty Stage 3. The Stage 2 endurance will hold enough torque. I believe it's roughly 50 less foot-pounds. But they said the Stage 3 daily would be a little bit heavier pedal, 15 or 20% heavier, but would engage more like a stock clutch and be smoother engagement. So we decided to go with the Stage 3. It includes a new throwout bearing, so got that, alignment tool, and the Stage 3 clutch and pressure plate. So that is the system. Well, before putting the flywheel on, I want to put this little pilot bearing in, and I did the measurements, and we will get perfect. This will go onto the shaft just the exact proper amount if I push it in flush with the crank, not into the taper at all, but flush with the crank. And you don't need support at the very end because there's a little blue seal that goes out on the end, so the bearings aren't actually riding until it's further in. Okay, the flywheel's on with new bolts. They're single-use stretch bolts, so they need to be replaced. The torque spec is 60 Newton meters or 44.25 foot-pounds. So go around and tighten them all to that spec, and then you torque them all to another 90 degrees. So quarter turn, and as I did the quarter turn, I would mark each one. That's why they're marked. They're the shorter 22.5 millimeter long flywheel bolts, so you only do 90 degrees. If they were the longer 44 millimeters, then you do 180 degrees. The flywheel's on now, and I'm going to install the clutch. The friction disc has got a big end and a small end that doesn't stick out as much. The side that doesn't stick out as much goes towards the flywheel, and then the pressure plate goes on. Just like that, and then you got to stick the alignment pin in, lift it up, slide it into the pilot bearing, and the pressure plate finishes going on. Then you got to put the bolts in. Their torque spec on them is 22 Newton meters, and you are supposed to put Loctite on them. So I'm going to snug those up, and that should be good. Well, here's the transmission. This is a 5-speed 012 FHN transmission. We got two electrical connections. One here is the speed sensor, and then one here is reverse sensor. The speed sensor plugs right into the factory wiring. You don't even have to mess with that at all. You do have to mess with the reverse sensor. You just need this plug that plugs into it off of the manual transmission cock, and then right up under the car here, there you can see your speed sensor plug, and then you got your D connector and your round connector. On your D connector, you snap this little clip off the wires, and then you can see them numbered there. You snip wires 7 and 8 and hook those up to your reverse sensor, and then all you got to do is just tie this somewhere out of the way because you don't need any more of those wires. They're all unused. So that's the wiring before we put the trans in. Well, I'm working on getting the transmission in. It's almost up there, but before you get it all the way in, I recommend putting in that the, hang on, little bolt on the side of the transmission right here, and putting the shifter linkage on. It's easier when the trans is partially down, and it probably doesn't matter, but I popped that clutch line right here on the slave cylinder. So then I'm gonna continue putting the transmission in. Well, here's the two starters. This one is a 1.8T clutch, and this, or I mean starter, and this is the 2-liter diesel starter. So I'm gonna put the 2-liter diesel starter in it. The transmission is in. I don't have the mounts in yet, but it is in. The shifter's in. I don't have the electrical hooked up, but I'm gonna do that. So it's all mounted. It's just the only bolts are the 2 bolts up here for the starter. So I'm gonna put that in now. Alright, well, I'm about to put the mounts on. These are all the different mounts. I'll show you. Up here, these are the 2 automatic mounts for the diesel. That's what comes stock. Those will not work with the manual transmission. Back here, we've got the Passat 1.8T mounts that came, and the subframe is different between the auto and manual. So this mount is quite a bit different than between that one. But I didn't really want to have to swap the subframe, so I got these mounts so I can use the auto subframe and not have to swap it. So this these 2 mounts on the left, or passenger side of the vehicle, are identical between the 1.8T and the diesel with the auto subframe. The difference would be the driver's side mount. The driver's side mount, this is a new one. It's got the hole in it here to go onto the automatic subframe mount, where for the manual you've got it where it bolts into the end for this mount for the manual subframe. So I got the new mount, so I don't have to swap the subframe. You can if you want. It'll probably save you some time. This is the drain plug for the transmission. You can see it's a triple square, but it's got that little thing sticking out in the middle, so I can't get it out without some type of security bit. So I'm actually just gonna punch that and drill that so I can get it out with a triple square. So I figured I'd show you that. The fill plug up on the driver's side of the transmission right there is just a 17mm Allen head, so that's not security. So I'm gonna drill that out and then change the fluid. Okay, so right up here there's a little tab. You just cut this off and then put this line on it, and that'll feed brake fluid to the clutch pedal. And then there's a bleeder valve right in the slave cylinder to bleed the air out. Well, the transmission is in now. I got the mounts on, the brackets, everything's tight, both sides. So right now I'm just putting this little heat shield on, just 3 10mm bolts, and then there'll be this CV axle shield that'll also go on the passenger side of the transmission. I don't know if you're taking the auto out, you obviously had to loosen the subframe, so I put the subframe back in, used new bolts. These are 81 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. These 213s are 15 foot-pounds, and then the 18mm up here are 55 foot-pounds, and then that one's 81 plus 90 degrees. And then you can see those the alignment hole right here. There's an alignment tool you can slide up, or just eye it so it's lined up, and that'll keep your alignment right. Well, I forgot something. Before you put this on, you need to put the CV axles in, because the CV axle can slide up above where it bolts in, so you can get it in without removing any ball joints or anything like that. So slide the CV axle into the transmission side, lift it up, slide it into the wheel, and then let it down. And then the bolts on there are torque to yield bolts. I have reused them before with Loctite, but at least use Loctite, and I'm not 100% sure in the torque spec on that. I have to look it up. Well, here's the 1.8T Passat transmission just for reference. But I made one mistake when I was putting in the manual trans into the other car. These two bolts here, the shifter linkage is supposed to be bolted here. Well, I bolted it here. So I only had about half my gears and neutral was way too far forward. So I had to drop the mounts down and move that linkage from there to there. So just be aware of that when you're putting the linkage on. Well, we're getting pretty close to being done. Here's the shifter installed. Got all the gears. Works good. Just put this little cover on here. Those two 10mm nuts. You can just I tucked the cable out of the way and the wires down here that were on the automatic shifter. You don't need them anymore with the manual. So this is the plug for the cigarette lighter that's in the little cover that goes on here. So just put that cover on and then we'll put the shifter boot on. I forgot to mention on this cover, this little black ring and this tan plastic thing, these are, I believe, Torx 20s. This has got to come out so the manual shifter boot will fit. Okay, the cover's there on and the shift boot's on. Here's the old shifter, and you can see this little tab right here. There's a ring that goes there to hold it and crimp it on that shaft. Well, my new one, I'm not exactly sure why, but didn't have that. So I just glued it on. Hopefully yours will actually have that band where you can actually use a steel band to crimp it on, or even use a zip tie or something similar. So put that on, and then that upper piece right there just snaps down into the hole, and then that should be done. The shift boot is done there, works good and looks pretty nice. Now we're on to the shift interlock switch, basically, so when you push the clutch pedal down, the car will start, and when you let it up, it won't start. Relay 53 is the one you're going to be hooking up. It used to go to the park neutral safety switch on the transmission, so it would only start in park and neutral. So that relay went up here, and it went right over relay 377 right over here. So the lowermost wire in there is that brown and white one you see. So I cut that wire, and if you provide ground to that, it'll close the circuit between those two silver terminals, and then the car will start. So you need this little connector off the manual transmission car. It plugs into that black connector above that blue one there. It's way up there, like right there, and that's a clutch switch. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's right back there with the right here. So you hook it up to that, and as long as you got that one wire hooked up to that relay, you can run the other wire anywhere you want, just to any ground. So I'm choosing just to run it to this 6mm bolt right here for the steering column, and that'll be ground, and then the car should start. And the blue switch is for the cruise control, but I think I'll hook that up later. Okay, everything's good except for we got to remove the transmission control module, or at least unplug it. So this panel right here you got to remove. Goes on right over here, passenger side footwell. There's just one bolt at the bottom. It's a Phillips head. Remove that. Then you pop this panel up. There's those clips, and that just pops up. And then this carpet, the transmission control module, is right underneath this carpet. So you just pull the carpet up, and then you can get to it. Yeah, the transmission control module sitting right about right here. It's in this waterproof box. So there's two tabs on the front. Just lift it up, and then you got your transmission control module in there. So all you got to do is just unplug it. You can take it out if you want, so you could sell it, maybe recoup a little of the cost of the swap. So just pull that out, and you should be good to go. Then just put it back together. Okay, so I think it should be ready to start. This is the first start. The car hasn't been started in about 2 months, so we'll see how it goes. Perfect. And we got a Christmas tree of lights because we don't have all the modules coated yet, but it's seeming to work pretty good. Okay, as you can see here, I got the ignition on, but engine's not running. But check engine light, ABS light, traction control, and brake light are all on. I coded the CAN gateway and ABS gateway, or ABS module. I'll show how to do that later. But right now I'm tuning it from the auto to manual tune from Malone. So here's the Flashzilla tool, and it's writing the auto to manual tune right now, and also a stage 1.5. So once this is done writing, then I'll have to go in and code the ECU to a manual, and then make sure that ABS and CAN gateways are good. Okay guys, we're almost done with this swap. Just working on the cruise control right now. The ECU is right under this box, which is under that panel that goes here by that battery and whatnot. So these are just 8mm bolts. You can get to them all except for the one back here. There's a little cap by the windshield wiper. Take that off and then you can get that other 8mm bolt off. So then just take this cap off and the ECU will be under it. Here's the ECU sitting just to the side. The big electrical connection comes off. This just unclips there and just pulls out, and then that'll just pull the electrical connection right off. There's a little zip tie right here. You'll cut this, and then this little cover will come off so you can get to all the wires in the back. Okay, well, everybody's probably got a tack. So you got to get the tack and file two opposite sides of it. So you can see the pins there are the slightly bigger holes, and then just on the outsides of them are those skinny rectangle holes, and those are the release slots. So once you file that tack a little bit, it'll slide in there and release it. The wire you're removing is this little gray wire, and it's numbered on the back. You can count it, but it's pin 59 is where this gray wire is, and this is the wire from the kickdown switch on the accelerator pedal that was used for the automatic. So you can release it there, and then it goes into pin 43. So it was in this more like orangish connector, and then it'll be going into pin 43 of this black connector. And you can probably see the red and white wire, or red and gray wire there, and it'll be going just to the left of that. But again, it's numbered and you can count. So it goes into pin 43, and once it's in there, then we'll just put it back together. One more thing on this cover, that screw that goes right behind the windshield wiper here, you got to get at it from the back side. It's hard to get in, so just set it in there and kind of start it in the plastic cover before you put the cover in, and that'll make it a lot easier to get this cover on. Okay, one thing, when you go to put the wire in and take it out, you have to pull this little pink strip out right here. Just put a knife or screwdriver under it and just pull it out, and that'll allow the wire to go in all the way. I did it at first and I had not pulled that out, and the wire only goes in about halfway. It won't go in all the way and click. So just so you know, pull that thing out before you put the wire in. Okay, I'm under the car here, or under the dash here in the car. This gray wire, the one I cut, is the number 1 wire. This is for the kickdown switch. That's the one we hooked up to the ECU of pin 43. So this wire right here, this is the pigtail connection for the blue clutch switch right up here. And one of those wires, it doesn't matter which, goes to that gray wire right there. And then you can just plug that connector back into the accelerator pedal. The other connector, you can see the brake light switch up here. This is the connector for that. It's pin 3, the one I cut, is just ignition power. So you need to splice into it, keep these two connected, but splice into it and run that to your other wire on your pigtail connection. And it doesn't matter which. So once you have that done, just plug all the connections back in and the cruise control will be working.